was 2016, the month October, when I was sitting in a crowded room full of hundreds of people at the Texas Teen Book Festival in Austin when Allie Carter talked about the book that almost killed her. Hey guys, I'm Kate, welcome back to my channel, and today I want to talk about something that when I first heard it totally blew my mind. And that was the idea of plot versus premise. Allie Carter, writer of the Gallagher Girls series, the High Society series, and the Embassy Row series, talked about how the second book in her first ever YA series, so her fourth ever published novel, Cross My Heart and Hope to Spy, almost killed her. Never mind that sequels are frickin' hard, okay? Especially when you've already published the first in a series and kind of gotten feedback from readers. I'll leave a link down below where Kim Chance talks about this, the kind of sophomore slump that writers tend to experience. But the thing that makes this so interesting and unique to me was that Allie was explaining how she had a very cool idea. I don't know how many writers I've talked to that have had a really cool idea and then that's it. They might have some idea about a character, either main or minor. They might have an idea for the setting or the world, but mostly they just have one very cool idea and isn't this amazing? The problem is that a singular one very cool thing does not a novel make. I'm gonna read you a small snippet from Allie's blog post when she wrote about this plot versus premise thing 15 months before she blew my mind with it. And I'll leave the rest of the post linked down below. And I quote, "From a craft standpoint, this is probably the biggest lesson that Cross My Heart taught me." Cross my heart. I remember well the conversation I had with my editor at the time, Donna Bray. "What do you want to do for the sequel?" Donna asked. "Well, you know that little throwaway line in book 1 about how Tina Walters thinks there's a boys' school in Maine? I want to do something with a boys' school in Maine," I said. "That's what I was going to ask you to do," Donna cried, and thus the Blackthorn Academy was born and Cross My Heart began. It was a great idea for a book. The problem was it wasn't a plot for a book. She goes on to say that from that premise, you know, the boys' school, the Blackthorn Academy, she gets maybe 3 or 4 plot points in total, but ultimately she had to scrap and rewrite the plot over and over and over again because all she had was the premise. She also talks about how her health started waning and they even had to push back the publication date of her novel because she didn't have the plot. It's a lot, but it's some of the best writing advice I have ever heard. Not in the like, don't use a dialogue tag other than said, Stephen King sort of way, but in the kind of way where I can see another writer's struggle, learn from it, and hope that I never make that mistake myself. It has stuck with me. And maybe it stuck with me because I have so many writer friends that come to me with the coolest freaking ideas I have ever heard. But then I am like their first sounding board for figuring out what the heck the plot is. Because those are the questions that I inevitably ask. I don't want you to tell me this really cool premise. It is really cool, but what is the story? What is going to happen? How is the main character going to grow? This sounds super obvious, and yet I do have a few writer friends who are never able to move past this initial obsession with the premise. And the reason I think it's so hard to move past the premise is because it's usually the first thing that comes into our mind. It's the first thing that comes into my mind. I have endless notes I have taken both on a Scrivener file and just like in my phone of story ideas that I would love to work on someday, but really those ideas are just the premise for the story. And like that's it. And I also realized that I've been thinking about this recently because I have a super cool, awesome, amazing idea for a book that I'm so excited for. But I don't have a plot yet. I have a main character, a super badass, awesome main character. And I have the first chapter fully solidified in my mind. I know the start. I know the spark for the story. I even have some minor characters that I think will be super fun and will provide a great context for the main character. I also have a setting and a belief system within this world, which is not something that usually pops into my mind immediately, as I am not the best at world building, and yet I have it this time. But I don't have the oomph yet. You know, the thing that makes it a story and not just a premise. And my personal opinion, in much like a everything has been done before kind of way, is that it's the story that makes books incredible, not the premise. Everyone has a story premise. I fully believe that everyone has a story premise inside of them. I don't know that I think everyone has a full-on story or the capabilities of telling a story, but I know that everyone has a story premise inside them. And actually, I think everyone has tons of story premises inside them. And in some ways, I think that's what tends to separate the storytellers from just the consumers of those stories, is the capability of turning the premise into a story. Yeah, does that make sense? So the battle I feel like I am currently waging, and several of my closest writer friends that I watch are often waging is taking this really cool premise and making it into a story. But I do want to end this on a positive note because I did say that I was really good at asking questions and being a sounding board, and I think that's what you need, is to ask the questions. That's what moves things from just premise to premise and plot. I'm kind of just letting my story mull its way into my mind a little bit more. I am going to write the first chapter of this new story probably today after I'm done filming this because I'm so freaking excited, and then I will get to work on asking myself those questions. I will make Freytag's pyramid and then I will fill it in. Who is my main character? What do they want? Why can't they get it? Who or what is standing in their way? And if I'm thinking about it now, I think this is actually gonna be one of those stories where the main character is standing in their own way for most of it. Yeah. And then I can expand from there. So eventually, after asking enough questions, I'll have filled in all of Freytag's pyramid, and then I will be able to outline. And at that point, I will have a plot. It may change in subsequent drafts because, hi, welcome to this channel. This is what happens to me. My plots always change after the 0 draft. But I will have one. So please do comment down below and let me know if you've ever fallen into this trap of having a premise but no story or no plot. And let me know what your favorite bit of writing advice is that's come from other writers. I don't want to say like they're failures, but maybe that thing that you can point to and be like, aha, I will learn from them so that I don't have to make that same mistake. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all very soon in the new video. Bye!